What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Coach's Corner. It is Dee here, and we have the pleasure of having Coach Shannon Harris back with us again of the DC Defenders. And I know what you're thinking. Last week was a little rough, but what I don't believe that there's not some goodness on film, even if you don't come away with the W. So I'm super excited to talk to Coach Shannon Harris today. Also, we will be doing the live Q&A from the fans. So please, please, please do not fear. You can put your comments and your questions in the chat. I also have some already, but be interactive. We are here for you. With that said, let's bring in Coach Harris, y'all. Hey, Coach.
Hello, how's it going?
It's going well. It's going well. Thank you for joining us today.
I appreciate it. My pleasure. Greatly excited always to be on here and to kind of give some feedback, updates on where we are throughout the process of our season. So we appreciate it. And as I always say, good or bad, God is amazing.
Yes, absolutely. And look, I said, right before you came on that even with a loss, I still feel like there are great things on film to take away. There are obviously some things that you guys worked on that showed up. And I want to kind of before we get into the react how you feel about the game and your reaction initially, I want to talk about the goodness first. It was five different receivers that were over 20 yards last game. And so I really want to highlight them. And I want to highlight Chris Rowland with 144 yards receiving. And I want to highlight the biggest point to me was the the yards after the catch. Like I think he had 85. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's incredible and it's trending in the right direction. So before everyone, gets upset about what didn't happen, I really want to highlight some of the great things that did on the offense that's trending in the right direction. And the leading rusher wasn't Jordan this week. So I think that's a good thing going in the right direction as well. So
Right.
with all that goodness being said, how did you feel? What was your takeaway? How was your initial reaction after that game in Michigan?
Yeah, I'm always optimistic about anything that what we do, and especially after a game like that. And so we one thing I talk to the players about every week about all things are working together for our goods, and so that you know anytime you have a loss like that or setback like that, there's some things that you can learn from it. Some good stuff that you can take from it, and that's kind of how we will approach this week. And like I told the guys, Michigan didn't beat us; it was our fundamentals that beat us. And so, as we, of course, questions that you may ask or we talk about, those will be some of the things that it's going to be constantly said that we didn't do a good job in our fundamentals this past week, and that's what beat us. That's what beat us against Michigan.
So you already just answered the kind of what was wrong, the fundamentals part of it. I know people may and multiple levels of the game, right? So you had some special teams play that didn't go well. You had defense and of course offensive. Do you remember a moment where there was like a momentum shift for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, we even felt like even in that in the second quarter when we got our first score, and then even early in the third quarter when we scored again, we felt like okay, we got a little momentum, but and then it came down to having that one or two big stops, and which didn't happen. I mean, because it just came down to fundamentally tackling. And then basketball, you hear guys always say it's a make or miss lead, right? Well, in football, and especially from a defensive perspective, you got to be able to tackle. And offensively, we got out of a little rhythm, but we felt like that we was going to have a little momentum as we got back going through there. But it just three was special for them. He did some really good stuff, and hats off to him for the type of game he played. But it just for us, we just have to get to our fundamentals and get back to tackling the right way and playing our brand of football.
Yeah, man, that he was slippery out there. I could
Oh
I
yeah,
was like,
oh yeah.
what is he got on, man? How do you adjust? Going into the next game, going on to what is a short week. How do you adjust knowing that it's based off of like the fundamentals you said, how do you fix it? What do you do?
Yeah, just effort level. We talked to the guys about that as well. When it comes to tackling, it's just all effort and doing your fundamentals in that part of it and how you've been coached to do it. And that's the part from that. And then offensively, you know, we've had these conversations. We're gonna have the type of games to where sometimes we're gonna have to bail the defense out from an offensive standpoint, and then sometimes the defense going to have to bail the offense out from that standpoint. And then it's sometimes special teams, as we've had early in the season, to where both special teams and defense did a great job of putting up points, kicking field goals, and then defense holding opponents to limited yards and points. And then you saw just the last week in the Arlington game how we had to put up a lot of points and from that standpoint. So it's going to be those type of game. And the one thing that I talked to our offense about and to the players is that we let their offense get too comfortable, and we didn't put pressure on their offense by, going point for point, you know what I mean? So those are things that, from a team perspective that we have to do a better job of from that standpoint. And, it's going to be those type of games, but, at the same time, it just all comes down to fundamental football. I don't care how athletic you are or all the things that you can do, at some point in time, it's going to come down to fundamentals.
Hey, yeah, I get it. And watching it, just remembering, I believe Perkins was like 13 out of 18, but it seemed like he was so much more, like it seemed like he had more than 13 completions.
Mhm.
I guess because he just was so accurate. So, um, what else, when you said that they got comfortable, is there anything else that like made it difficult? Because obviously they had a level of confidence about them. Is there anything else that stood out on tape when you watched it back? Like, all right, these guys got us here.
Yeah, no, it wasn't so much of the things that just stood out that you
Hmm.
can pinpoint one thing. It was just more of, from an offensive standpoint, we just gotta, we can't get 20 points in one play. We just gotta keep methodically doing the things we need to do to try to get points on the board. And I think, there was a few times to where, on shot plays, we just, decided we want to try to get it all at times, you know what I mean? And it doesn't work that way. Let's just keep chopping wood, keep eating up clock, and then however long it takes for us to get the ball in the end zone, let it take that long. But, we got to make sure that we find a way to come away with points. And we just got caught up in that moment, and they did a good job of scoring points. Well, breaking tackles, let me say that. But we have to not think that we can get points in all the time in chunk plays. We just got to take our time and march down the field and do it
Yeah.
that way.
Look, that was the 44-second two-play drive. That was a beauty. Like you said, I know that's not going to be an all the time thing, but what were you feeling when, it only took two plays to score? Like, do you feel like, okay, the momentum has shifted in our direction and we're gonna, we're able to pull this thing on out?
Yeah, I mean, we know we have the capability of doing it at
Hmm.
any point in time. It's
Right.
just, when that time presents itself, then that's when you do it. But it's not going to be like that every drive. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
we have to understand that part too, that defense is not going to just let us, you know, throw the ball down the field and get chunk plays like that and score that easy. So we have to understand the mindset of, methodically just, like I say, just marching down the field, take what the defense give us, and then keep the chains moving from that standpoint and go from there. Yeah, and that team is really good. They're a good fundamental sound team itself. They're not going to beat themselves. They're going to do what they do and do it well, and hope that you make mistakes.
I don't, and I know, I also want to go back to more positive news. Like you guys still kind of control your own destiny. You're still on top of your division here. So are those conversations that you had with the guys?
Yeah, we had that in the team meeting today. I showed it to them. I said, it's not a funeral, man. So I showed them the standings, show where we are, still sitting at the top on the XFL side, and then we all right there in the mix together for the, from a USFL side and the XFL side, and so we all right there where we need to be in the mix. And so we've done a good job of keeping ourselves where we need to be from that standpoint. So we just need to make sure that, the things that we wouldn't accept in a loss, we can't accept them in a win as well. So we keep honing in on those type of things, and that's what we talked about today in the team meeting earlier today. So, look, man, we're still sitting in where we need to be sitting. We control it, so that's what we need to go do this Friday.
All right, maintain. What is it? Maintain.
The terror must be maintained,
There
or the
must be.
empire is doomed, right?
Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. So we have some questions in the chat here. I'm gonna go ahead and pivot to the Q&A section. I'll start with one of them. We'll start with this one. When you look at the league as a whole, how do you feel the competition has been both while at home at DC and away in a place like Detroit? What impact is the environment having? I like that one.
Yeah, I tell you, the league as a whole is very competitive. Let me say that, and it's almost it's right there to where how it is on NFL Sunday football. No matter what the record is, sometimes you just gotta throw it out the window, and you're gonna get someone's best shot. You know what I mean? So,
Mhm.
and on the road, I mean, I tell you, the fans are very rowdy. They make it hard for us. Try to make it hard for us at times, and
Yeah.
we've had some success on the road so far this season. Unfortunately, this past game wasn't the case, but and then at home, I think we kind of talked about it last week. Our
Mhm.
fans are like they're the best fans throughout the league. You know what I mean? And the one thing that what helps home field advantage is when you get when your fans can create those false starts. I tell
Mhm.
you that's true home field advantage. So we'll be back in Rowdy Audi in another 2 weeks, so we can't wait to get back there for sure.
Yeah, we can't wait to have you guys back there because there's no other beer snake in the league. Just so, right? Am I correct? There's no other
No
stadium
other,
created. They may
no,
try.
yeah, no other beer snakes in the league, that's for sure.
Yeah, so we got the one and only. So
Hmm.
another question I have, fan question here. Who outside of Jordan is a leader in the locker room?
Yeah, so I mean, um, um, Bradley Moore does a good job of leadership for us in the locker room. Abram Smith do a great job of keeping guys up. And then, defensively, Joe Wallace, he does a good job with those guys. Momo, he's very vocal. He talked to those guys a good bit. And so, those guys, of course, been here for the last 2 years or 3 years. So they kind of set the tone for us from a offense defensive perspective. And Matt McCrane even have some things to say every once in a while. He does a good job. So because he's been with us, throughout the
Yeah.
last 3 years. So those guys all have good positive things to say. When we talk about it every week, we're gonna handle adversity in a positive way, and those are the things that we got to continue to do.
It looks like defender was out there at Ford Field, so he said he tried to get some false starts for you guys, but he wasn't
Yeah,
successful. um,
yeah.
Penalties. How do you address them after a game like Sunday?
Yeah, penalties. Those are sometimes. I, I try to stay away from those conversations a lot. Because it's like the past couple of games we had a pretty good share of them, but uh, you know we just got to continue to harp on them about doing like let's not create those type of foolish penalties. Let's be disciplined in what we do from a play standpoint. Let's be clean. No pre-snap penalties for sure. That's the one thing we harp on all the time, daily, about no pre-snap penalties. So, uh, they are what they are, and sometimes we get I'm looking at the stat sheet now. We get the fair share of them a lot. Sometimes, you know, I say this: they are what they are.
So this is a question for me. It's my personal question. It's not on the list. So the play where there was a penalty, like we thought at home, correct? Like what happened? Was it a personal foul? Like was it off? Like what happened on that play? I don't think we got verification at home what happened on that play.
Yeah, I think you're referring to our first drive, right?
Yeah, the first
When
drive
there
where
was
the
it was a
fourth and
fourth
it
and
was a fourth
one,
and one. Then they
and then
went back 5. Then it was.
yeah, we had a false start, and then they moved us back to 4th and 6, and
Hmm.
then they jumped off sides on our field goal try, and there was a penalty there, to where it became a personal foul after the fact. So yeah, that's one of those ones to where we still scratching our head on trying to figure it out and get some
Okay.
explanation
Okay, so
behind
you
it.
weren't the only one. You guys weren't the only ones confused because I was like, wait, we thought we were like first and goal. We thought things were going in that direction, and then we were back at fourth and one.
Yeah, huge momentum shift for sure. Huge momentum shift after a
Yeah,
good
I
drive.
can
So you know, we're gonna fight through them.
Yeah, that was interesting. Okay, sorry that wasn't on the list. I apologize, y'all. That was my question. Dome play preparation for playing in a dome, is it different when you're gonna be outside? Like you're gonna be outside, and then preparation different for when you're gonna be in a dome. Does that go like going for like a mat and the punter and all that? Do they prepare differently? Do you guys as a whole prepare differently?
Yeah, it's definitely different, especially when you're on the road. When you're in a loud environment, you oftentimes want to, change your snap count from non-verbal to, well, from go from verbal to non-verbal in your commands with a snap count. And yeah, we try to get in the indoor facility every once in a while so we can kind of, it's the lighting is totally different indoors than
Mhm.
outdoors, that's for sure. So we try to prep for those moments, and by going to some of the local indoor facilities here, and it helps a lot. It helps a lot when we're able to get indoors, knowing that we're going into a dome, to be able to prep for practice, because the lighting is definitely different, especially from a receiver standpoint, in catching the ball.
Okay, I was like, you're referring to catching the ball. Did you say enduring lighting is better than like having the sun blazing and you may not be able to see the ball? Would you say that it's better in the dome, or the
Well, the ball travels better in the dome,
okay.
for sure, and the lighting, depending on what type of lighting they have inside their dome, it can still be very bright, and for you to track the ball at times. It's like a little dot coming at you. And then at nighttime, of course, it's different because with the lighting, and then in the daytime, it's sometimes with the sun and all that stuff. So you have your different variations of what it's like when trying to track the ball, whether you're indoors or outdoors, depending on the weather and all that stuff. So, but for us, we prep, we go indoors, and then we try to get some good feels, in some of the local indoor facilities around here.
Okay. So we have a beer snake question. Is the beer snake arguably the signature fan experience of the UFL? How do you utilize that to encourage the team to succeed? I know we briefly touched on it being the only beer snake in the league, but do you use that to your advantage with the guys in the locker room?
Yeah, I mean, I actually showed a video to the team about how passionate our fans are, and having an opportunity to see how that beer snake get up there, and in that section, how rowdy those guys are. And that's one of our better sections there, because the passionate fans that we have over in that section, and they're very loud, and we appreciate them for that. And we, you know what, we might need to start 2 beer snakes, or 4, on
Uh-huh.
all 4 sides, all the way around that thing,
Yeah,
so we can get
they used to
everybody.
have them on the opposite side, but I don't know if you know that the kids are getting involved. Kids are collecting cups to bring over to the beer snake. So
Awesome.
it is a collective effort of all ages.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
to grow that snake,
that's right. That's right. Yeah.
yeah, they're
We
getting it for
appreciate
the
it for sure.
so that's great. Going into the second half, is there anything that you feel that you need to do to solidify that defense for the second half? We're in the second half of the season now, but is there anything on the defensive side that you feel like you need to solidify?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is, like I said, is that we have to lock in early. You know what I mean, and be zoned into what Coach William and the staff are calling, and what they've gone over for our guys. And because as you look at it, oftentimes in the second half, we're really good when there's been high scoring games, right?
Yeah.
So, and then we just have to lock in early from that standpoint, and we continuously talk to them about it. And then it just go back again to the fundamentals of tackling. When teams have scored a lot of points on us, it's more of just tackling. As you look at it first in the beginning of the season, those tackles was made. But sometimes too, you get late in the season, and sometimes your body get fatigued at times, and so that happens a lot. But one thing we harp on our guys about making sure they get treatment, and then make sure they stay in the weight room, because as the season go on, you got to be able to have those things done in order to take those type of hits and stuff like that.
We skipped over this. Were there any significant injuries from this game? We skipped over that one though.
No, we actually one of the pretty healthiest team, throughout the league. So, shout out to our trainer for that. Rob and his staff does a great job for us.
That's good. That's good news. A great takeaway.
And our strength and conditioning coach, Carlton does a good job with making sure our guys are in the weight room. So, shout out to those guys for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just double check to see if we have any other fan questions, and then we'll get on to next talking about this week's opponent. You have a short week. Kind of run through what the rest of this week looks like, since you guys are playing Friday night.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's a quick turnaround, and we have to be creative in how we practice, because we've had 3 games in 13 days, so that's pretty brutal on any level of football. So, after the hard fought game against Arlington, then here it is. You got another physical game in Michigan, and then you turn around in a short week, and then you play San Antonio, who's they still find themselves, but they came up to DC, and they beat us. So we can't take them for granted. The thing I talk to the guys about is not overlooking their record. We have to make sure that we look at the opponent, and these guys are going to continue to play hard, and that's what we got to do. We cannot go in lax and think that this team is just going to lay down for us. That's not how it works in pro ball.
Yeah, and so when you're preparing for a team, obviously, like you said, they came to DC and got a win. Do you roll that film back? What's that preparation like? Are we constantly viewing what happened last time? How focused are you on last week's film to make sure this doesn't happen? How is that preparation?
Yeah, no, we definitely bring that film back out, because we knew that we had a special team touchdown against us. That can't happen. And then we showed that where we had some missed opportunities offensively, and then we had some breakdowns on the defense side of the ball. But once we locked in and settled in, we was able to shut those guys down, especially on our defense. And then offensively, we just got to sustain. And then and our red zone has picked up since then. Our red zone offense has picked up since then. So that's where we got to continue to get better at from those standpoint. But yeah, we make sure we bring that film back out, we dust it off, and go back down memory lane, and make sure that we don't get lax again and let this happen.
All right, I like it. Are there any words of comfort you have for the fan base? I know I know how fans are. They, there's a set of emotions behind it. Things not working out the way they planned or expected it. Is there a message you have for them going into this next week?
Yeah, just like I told the players, don't get discouraged by any of this stuff. Things happen. They happen for a reason, and I believe that reason, the way we took the loss this past weekend, is to help us get back locked in. But the thing, we also have to go back and remember that we are still in first place. We are still the dudes of this league that everyone wants to still beat. So we have to make sure we bring our energy level and our physicality back to where it's been and where it needs to be. So we just got to get back to our brand of football. We're not going to let one game beat us twice. That's for sure. And so we're going to get back to our basics from that standpoint. And we're going to put a good brand of football out there come Friday night, and it's going to be a refuse to lose attitude, And so we're excited about that part. And, like I told them too, is this help us, get back on top to where we need to be, and, get a win here, and then come back into DC with the right mindset with another good football team we're gonna face in a divisional game for us. These next two, and
Yep.
so we're excited about it. And so uh, they'll be ready to play. They'll be ready to play, and we're excited about that part.
Yes, yes. Lots of love here in the chat. Friday night. Do not miss these guys on. They'll be on Fox at 8 p.m. They'll be out in the dome, another indoor game. It's out in San Antonio. So make sure you're locked in and watching them with them guys. One, you have any final words? I know you spoke to the fans, spoke about what you told the players. Do you have any final words for anybody?
Yeah, no final words, no nothing, final, but we can't,
Uh-huh.
we appreciate you guys for what you're doing from a fan standpoint. Continue to support us from afar, and then when we get back to DC, we need it to be rowdy for sure. We need the rowdy Audi fans out there, and it's going to be a really big game for us when against
Yes,
Arlington.
yes.
Like I said, divisional game, so come out, be rowdy, get the beer snake going. But before then, cheers on from afar in San Antonio Friday night, and we can't wait to get back to the district.
Make sure you're tuned in, guys. And when you guys get back to DC, and hopefully we'll be able to talk about this next week. When you guys get back to DC, we're excited to see the Renegades. But I wish the game that you guys had on the road was in Audi. Can you imagine? I can't imagine the energy in that stadium if that game was in DC.
All right.
Yeah, we probably would have saw some lemons. I haven't seen a lemon this season. But anyway.
Yeah, bring the lemon back. That'd be fun.
Like, look, it's a touchy subject, but I'm on board. I'm on board. I'll sign up for it. But I want to thank you again, Coach. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you to the fans and the chat that left the questions. Thank you guys for sharing and all that. Hopefully we'll be back next week with Coach Shannon Harris, and we'll see you then. Until then, shows up, DC.
Shields up.
See y'all.